Hi there, and welcome along to episode 165 of the Gersnet Weekly Podcast, the totally free and independent Rangers show made by fans for fans, where all of our content is always absolutely free. And just as a wee reminder, it's not just the podcast that we have for free here at Gersnet, but if you head over to our website at www.gersnet.co.uk, you can find a whole host of really great content, including a friendly discussion forum, plenty of articles, social media, a history archive, match reviews, previews, all sorts of stuff. So please do head over to the website and check it out. We've been away for a few weeks, but Rangers are back in less than 48 hours, so we're here to take a look at what's been happening over the transfer window in the last couple of weeks, as well as previewing Tuesday night's trip to Pittodrie. Not an easy game to throw ourselves back into the second half of the season, but there we go. As always, we are live. It's just gone 9:35 on Sunday, the 16th of January. If you're joining us live tonight, then thank you so much for giving up your time and welcome back to the world of Gersnet. Please do let us know your thoughts, your questions, your comments, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. As always, the podcast is available for download after the broadcast goes out, usually on first thing on a Monday morning. You can get that wherever you get your podcast from, including Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher, and also on Spotify. I apologise that we're a few minutes late, but one of our esteemed colleagues was having some technical difficulties. I'll let you figure out which one that was. It's the same one who also seemed to have to run away for a couple of minutes whilst the intro music was playing there and gave me a wee bit of a heart attack. We'll introduce our guest now. First things first, joining me this evening, a very warm welcome back to Colin Armstrong. Colin, was Santa good to you?
It was okay, yeah. I'm of an age where it's, socks and pants and that kind of stuff. But, got a nice pair of shoes from the wife, a couple of good albums. Aye, pretty good. Yourself? Was it good to you?
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. Judging by tonight's show, he never got you a watch. But no, I can't.
Oh, boom, he's right in there straight away, right? Oh, aye, brilliant.
But yeah, no, me, it was fine. He managed to find me down here in London. It's been fairly quiet, hasn't it? There's still restrictions and taking lateral flow tests and all that stuff. So straight back into it now with the long old January. Are you back at work and everything?
Yeah, I was back last week, so that was my first week back. So that was pretty grand. Pretty full on at the moment. I've got a big deadline coming up at the end of January. So the Brown stuff is pretty much hitting the fan every day, so it's good.
Excellent. Also with us this evening, Stewart Weir. Stewart, good evening. How are you? How have you been spending your weeks without Rangers?
Yeah, well, I've managed to survive this far, so not long to go now before the matches return and the football returns. So looking forward to that. The whole thing about Santa, it was pretty good to me. We were actually having a discussion before we came on air as to whether Colin got a new laptop or not, but well,
not yet.
the jury's out in that. I'm not sure whether the watch comes before the laptop, but we'll see.
No, he needs something. Maybe a personal assistant to get him to shows on time. Gents, what we're going to do, we're going to take a look at the transfer activity first of all, and then we'll move on to preview the Aberdeen game. Colin, we'll start with yourself, and we'll take a wee look at transfers in before we look at activity going the other way. And a permanent signing brought in Sands. Where does he play? What would you expect him to have for the second half of the season?
I mean, I'm like you. I hadn't heard of the boy at all, really. You know what I mean? But I had a wee read today of Jordan Campbell's piece in Athletic that sort of provided some info on him, and seems to be he's quite versatile. So he's sort of centre half, holding midfielder, right back, can even play as a number 8. So, but some pretty big people are saying some good things about him. David Villa, Patrick Vieira, Claudio Reyna. A lot of he's came across a lot of big names in his career so far in America, and they're saying a lot of positive things about him. So it'll be interesting to see where he plays. I'm wondering if immediately he might just provide a bit of cover at right back with Patterson going the other way. But I suppose time will tell. But I mean, I'm quite confident with the recruitment because, recently we've got more right than we've got wrong, if you know what I mean, especially when it comes to younger boys coming in. So, yeah, he seems to have, as I say, the backing of quite a few big names. I'm quite confident with Ross Wilson and, the recruitment. So it all looks good. It looks like it should be a good addition to the squad.
Sure. Is the American market one that Rangers should be looking to exploit? I mean, obviously the way they do recruitment over there is a wee bit different, and I think this James Sands is the first homegrown player from NYCFC, a fairly new club that sprung up a few years ago. But I mean, the players out there aren't on massive salaries, but surely the standard and quality of football out there is getting better and better. It makes sense that that's a market we would try and exploit.
Yeah, I think if you look at the MLS in general, and you look at the players that have come to Europe, they've made a bit of a name for themselves now and created a bit of a reputation. I mean, in terms of James Sands, this time about a year ago, I know that Borussia Mönchengladbach were looking at him, but then again, the German clubs in general look at the MLS as a source of new talent and untapped talent a lot of the time. I mean, Sands has eventually been given a call up to the full USA squad, and you only need to go through that to sort of look and see where some of the players and some of the names within that team are playing and performing. I think probably the best known just now is probably somebody like Weston McKennie at Juventus. So when you're looking at guys through that squad, and there's guys playing in the Bundesliga, there's guys playing in in the French top flight, guys playing Italy, Spain, you name it, in Portugal. You have to think that they're well respected. First of all, to have made that move, but secondly, that they're actually holding down positions at these clubs. I mean, I know people will say, well, there's guys in the Scotland team at Manchester United and at Arsenal and rhyme off a list of where these guys are playing. But the fact is, not too many Scots have made it in Europe as players. And I think that's probably a measure of how well respected some of the Americans are and some of the new American talent is. And I think, who can say it's fine, as Colin was alluding to there, the likes of David Villa and Patrick Vieira, Claudio Reyna, saying that this guy has got what it takes. Equally, I know a number of guys that Sir Alex Ferguson have said was a fantastic talent or could be making a great manager, and it never quite worked out that way. And time will tell. But I think he's probably a good addition to the squad, especially at this time when there are injuries in certain key positions, and also maybe a lack of the kind of strength and depth that Rangers had a few months ago.
I think that's a key point, isn't it? With the injuries suffered to Hollander and Balogun this season, with Patterson, as Colin says, going out the door, and with always options in midfield, the boy seems to be a real utility player. And just looking at his stats here, he's 21 years of age, 65 appearances at New York City, who ended up winning the MLS Cup, which is obviously essentially winning the MLS, winning the top tier in America. 7 full caps for the US men's national team. It certainly seems to be a shrewd piece of business. I understand it's a loan with then an agreement to buy after the loan's expired. So it seems like a very, very encouraging sign. Colin, speaking of encouraging signs, in the last few days we've had confirmation of the pre-contract signing of Mr. Suter from Hearts. Obviously, he started his career at Dundee United. I think still holds the record for Dundee United's youngest ever first team player. Had a torrid time with injury, but is certainly again a boy with real talent, real potential, full international for Scotland. And to some, I guess the recruitment model that Rangers should have is to hoover up the best Scottish talent that's available. How happy are you with this signing as well?
I mean, I'm not going to lie, slight concerns about the injury thing, because I think Rangers have a history in terms of signing players who end up, the one that springs to mind is Gersnet's off and all that kind of thing. So I've got slight concerns about the fact that, he comes with that reputation that he's had. Was it 2 cruciates, I think? 2 cruciate
the same one twice.
Same one twice. So slightly concerned about that. But, I mean, everything else is positive. I'm kind of like you. The fact that, all my favourite Rangers players, bar a couple, are Scottish, you know what I mean? So I always like to see the club signing Scottish players. I know some supporters have got a kind of snobbery about that. They want us to be linked with names coming in from elsewhere. But I do like to see us sign some Scottish boys now and again. So yeah, he's obviously a player that's done really, really well at Hearts. He's came back well from those 2 injuries. And yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of stuff for the Hearts fans since it's happened, and That's been quite fun. It is what it is at the end of the day. It's kind of what happened to us with Gerrard going to Villa. You know what I mean? There's bigger money, and he would view it as a step up in his career. To his final destination, which he hopes is Liverpool. And it's probably the same for Suter. You know what I mean? He's probably been playing Dundee United and Hearts, one day looking to get the chance to go to Rangers or Celtic or a club down south, and he's got that opportunity and he's taken it. So I'm not quite sure where the Hearts fans are coming from. I know they're sort of saying, we stood by him through 2 injuries and all that. I'm not quite sure what else they could have done with a player who was under contract, to be honest with you, but aye, it is what it is. And I'm glad to see, as I said, some Scottish boys coming in. And again, it'll be interesting to see where he fits in. I'm kind of wondering, because you say he's a full Scottish internationalist. He was the captain of Hearts, mainstay at Hearts. I kind of wonder if he's coming in not as a squad member, as he's going to be part of the Rangers. The 2 centre half pairings. So it'll be interesting to see where he fits in. I'm wondering if he's a replacement for Goldson. So we'll find out in the long term, I suppose.
I guess that's the point, isn't it? Is Connor Goldson, it's quite obvious, isn't signing a new deal unless we offer him the wage that makes him the highest paid player in the squad, which doesn't seem to be happening. Leon Balogun, just checking there, 33 years of age, and has done well, and has done very, very well in his time at Rangers, but is not a long-term prospect for us, certainly, as he seems to keep picking up injuries. I think you're absolutely right. Suter's not coming in to warm the bench. I mean, he might be coming in to provide competition, but it's strong competition, hearty competition, and he'll be pushing for one of those 2 starting centre-half spots. Stuart, we're in this awkward position now, I suppose, or maybe the player's in an awkward position whereby he has agreed his future. But at this point, again, as I say, on Sunday, the 16th of Jan, he's still a Hearts player, in that there's clearly been no fee agreed between the 2 clubs. You have to believe that Rangers would be pushing to try and get him in early, as they did with the likes of Glenn Kamara. But how important is it, do you think, to try and get him in early? Would you be paying a lot of money to do so, or are you happy to see him wait at Hearts until the end of the season?
I think you're probably looking at something between 2 goldfish in a balloon and £500,000, and somewhere in between those 2 figures there is probably what Hearts and Rangers will agree on. Personally, I think if you've signed up a guy like this and you see him as your future, for me, you want this guy as part of your future as soon as possible. You want him to be at the club and you want him to be playing games for Rangers. I don't see the point in hanging off another 6 months to see what happens. If you have ambition of retaining the Championship, I think this is the kind of personnel that Rangers should be bringing in. I don't see him coming in as a backup or somebody as a replacement in one of every 3 games. I can see him actually being a starter, and I agree with Colin. I've always liked, players in Scotland moving to other Scottish clubs and bigger clubs and improving themselves. And I think the advantage that you get there, unlike some foreign talent you bring in, is that these guys, in general, in a vast majority of the time, hit the ground running because they know what's expected of them. They know the pace of the game. They know what they'll get away with in Scotland. And I think to that extent, he should be a good acquisition. He's only in his mid-20s, so you're looking longevity-wise. So if he signs a 3.5-year deal, if he's made it and he suddenly becomes the new Alan Hansen, Rangers will be selling him at a tidy profit at the peak of his career. If not, and he's happy to stay at Rangers and he makes a go of it, you'd be quite willing to keep on somebody like that. Just when Colin was saying there about the transfers and guys that have been injured previously, I think the Kuznetsov one is one of the the better known ones. I still think that Daniel Prodan has to be the one that takes the unwanted honours when it comes to somebody who was evidently not fit when he was signed, and sadly the guy's not here, never got a chance. But when that transfer was taking place, Prodan, it was between either Rangers or Tottenham that he went to, And I think Tottenham in that one does the howitzer shell. Never mind a bullet.
I'll come in on that. Sure, I would argue that Kuznetsov is worse because I was at his debut and we saw what he was going to be. You know what I mean? He was just an outstanding centre half. We never saw Prodan. You know what I mean? So we would never really know. It's almost like we never really saw what we lost, what we never got, so to speak. But with Kuznetsov, we did. You know, those 1.5 games that he played, he just looked like an absolute world beater, and I think he would have been such a big player for us. And then, as I said, a game and a half in, no one's near him. His knee bursts, and essentially you don't see him again. You know what I mean? So that's the one for me anyway that always sort of stings a wee bit.
I imagine it's done a bit more for him. I think when it comes to John Souttar, I agree with the pair of you. Phenomenal talent. It's the kind of signing we need to be making. And as I say, Goldson's contract's up in a few months. I think Balogun is up at the end of the season as well, isn't it? So it's one of those where if he can have the next few months, have the second half of the season to bed into the. I mean, I don't know how accurate that is or how real that is in practice, but to bed into the squad, to get used to the style of play, the style of management and coaching, and then really hit the ground running next season. I think that's what was kind of aspired to with Scott Wright, maybe not kicked on so much this year as we'd hoped he would, but you can see that the plan there, you can see how they want it. I mean, it certainly happened with Glenn Kamara, and you can see what a success he's been. Finally, Stuart, one other, not necessarily a new signing, but Cedric Itten has been recalled from Greuther Fürth out in Germany, comes back in, and it seems like the manager's been keen to get him in and give him a chance to get going. Given that Jermaine Defoe's out the door, which we'll come on to in a moment, are you pleased to see Itten come back? Are you happy to see him get a chance?
I think the majority of Rangers fans, given his track record, they're probably actually quite happy that he's made a return. I think I wouldn't say it was shock when he went out on loan, but there were a few raised eyebrows and a few people were surprised because he did seem to have an impact. He was an impact player. I would say that's probably what you get out of him is he's somebody who comes off the bench and does contribute. Especially if you're playing Motherwell. You know, I think he's the kind of guy that he's obviously a fan's favourite. I'm not quite saying that he's ready for cult status just yet, but I think there were more people kind of nodding in agreement that he was actually making a return than there were people saddened by the fact that Defoe was making way in the squad for him.
Yeah, that sums up exactly how I feel. The boy's clearly a talent. Scored some good goals, scored some important goals. Was at Lech Poznan last season in the Europa. He led the line, took his goal well there. And yeah, I'm very excited to see what he can bring. Colin, how about yourself? What are your views on it? I
felt he was quite unlucky to be moved on and on loan in the summer. I mean, he's clearly no at the standard yet where you'd be looking at maybe Rangers number 9 or, holding that berth permanently. But every time he comes on, you know what? He's the type of player that I really like because he never hides. He's always looking for the ball. He's always working. He's always trying to link up the play. A real honest player. And I think any manager would look at someone like that and think, you know what? I might be able to do something with this boy and turn him into a player because his attitude seems spot on. I think he's a half decent finisher. I think he links the play up well. I think he holds the ball up well and brings others in. Still a wee bit rough around the edges at times, but I was a wee bit surprised when he went out on loan. I must admit, I thought he'd have been someone who'd have been looking to, increase his sort of playing time and try and make a claim to get more regular game time. So I was a wee bit surprised when he went, and I'm certainly glad to see him back because if Rangers are in a hole in a game, if we're needing a goal, I would always trust him to come on and do something for us.
He's got a kind of habit as well of scoring unorthodox goals, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
He doesn't. He's not the kind of guy that's going to come in and get a knocked out. Okay, he might knock the ball down for somebody else to score, but he is liable to score from the unlikeliest positions or the unlikeliest sources. And I think that makes him something that you want in terms of your armoury. He offers something different to anything else that Rangers have got. Hence the reason why I think much as Defoe contributed last season, ultimately I think that if you're looking at somebody, especially the whole connection with Roy Mackay must be looking at the what Rangers have in terms of their arsenal, and the various strikers that they've got and what they give. And the one thing that Rangers have kind of lacked is somebody with that kind of aerial threat. Itten's not an out and out, target man. He can play that role. He's very effective wherever he plays, but I think it just gives Rangers more options.
Sorry, Ross. I'll tell you something else. If you look at the improvement, speaking of Roy Mackay there, if the improvement in both Morelos' performances and his goal scoring and his body shape, I mean, if you've seen the photos of him recently, he's looking as trim as he's ever looked. If that's what Roy Mackay can do with someone like Morelos, who always had that sort of I can't be arsed look about him at times, what's he going to be able to do with a guy who seems really keen and up for it? Someone like Eaton, I think there's a lot of improvement can be done there. And if Roy Mackay's done something miraculous with Morelos in terms of turning him round, in terms of his attitude, because that performance against Hibs in the semi-final was embarrassing. That's probably one of the worst performances I've seen from a Rangers striker. He just had no interest, and to go from that to where he is now, doing extra work. That photo I shared on the WhatsApp, that's as trim as I've seen him in a long, long time. He's scoring goals again. So if you can think what Roy Mackay can do with Cedric Eaton, get him in and get him improved, working his game and improve him, then you're getting a better player. I
just wonder if Roy Mackay's got a DVD that he just walked into Morelos and going, here, that's what I've done.
Yeah.
Once you come close to that, then you can start pulling faces and, be Mr. Huffy and all the rest of it. You can do what you like. I don't care as long as you're scoring the goals. But this is the standard that I've set. Do you want to listen, and do you want to learn, or do you want to go somewhere else?
I think is it the case that Roy Mackay can speak Spanish, can't he?
Yeah,
he can. I just wonder if the fact that someone can actually communicate and better with Morelos. I'm still a wee bit miffed that Morelos hasn't made a better effort to learn English, but the fact that someone can now actually speak to him fluently and maybe be able to more put, a comforting arm around his shoulder and all that kind of thing. And when he maybe needs it, it was maybe difficult for Gerrard to do that if there was a communication issue. So I just wonder if that's helping as well. One, Roy Mackay he was a world-class striker. And two, he can talk to Morelos. They literally talk the same language.
Yeah. Don't forget though that Graham Murphy also speaks Spanish, and we'll see how that went. I think you can see. I agree. I'm really pleased that Itten's come back, and I think it has been done, as Stuart says, not necessarily because he's an aerial threat, but he does bring something that the rest of our strikers don't bring. So say we have 4 key attacking threats now in Morelos, Itten, Sakala, and Kemar Roof. They all bring something very, very different. If you want a physical bully to frustrate defenders and really put himself about, you've got Morelos. If you want the guy with pace running at defence and getting a shot away, you've got Sakala. If you want the target man, flick on, hold the ball up, you've got Cedric Itten. And if you want just the genuine sort of technical striking genius, goal scorer or 50-yard goal scorer as well, you've got Kemar Roof. So it really does it's a front line that has so many different options to it, and that's what you need. So I think it's very, very encouraging. I guess it's a good point, as good a point as any to move on to the outgoings from the squad. And Colin, whilst we're talking about Cedric Itten coming in, it's the elephant in the room is that someone had to make way for that, and that man was Jermaine Defoe. Now he's been incredibly complimentary about his time at Rangers. Obviously, it's his only league title in his illustrious career. A spectacular talent, a predator, a goal scorer, every place he's gone throughout a very, very successful career. One of the greatest Premier League strikers in England of all time. And he's spoken very, very well and very fondly about his time at Rangers. But he wasn't getting game time. As we say, Roy Mackay's been brought in as the new management team to be the strikers coach, and so he lost his coaching responsibilities. Is this one where actually it suits all parties to get him off the wage bill and let him go and seek a new challenge?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he's 39. As good a player as he is. Even under Steven Gerrard, who obviously rated him very highly, his game time was becoming limited. Even then, you still, if he was coming on for the last 5 minutes, you would trust him to get a goal. That's how good a striker he is. But yeah, it was just one of those. As far as I'm aware, he was commanding quite a decent salary. You're not getting a huge amount of game time out of him. When the new management team come in, he's then not got his coaching duties anymore. So it is a wee bit. It's a shame it's came to this. Really, it's not the best way. I mean, it's not a bad way for his career at Rangers to end. Sorry, but it's probably not the way he wanted it to end. I think he probably thought he had at least one more year in him here, and even if his game time was limited. But I mean, the way he was speaking through the week about Rangers, I mean, it says a lot about him as an individual, but it also says a lot about us as a club. The amount of people that have come in. Obviously the boys from Scotland, as talking about earlier on, like to see Rangers sign Scottish boys. They know what Rangers are about, so that's by the by. But when you've got people coming in from, especially from the league down the road, the self-proclaimed biggest league in the world, which is finished in January. When you've got players coming in for that standard and coming to Rangers, and then when he was on Sky Sports the other day, he was waxing lyrical about the club in terms of its size and the people within the club, the supporters. That says a lot about us as a club. We take a lot of negative press from individuals up here within the media and stuff like that, and people in public life. There's someone who's a respected professional at a very, very high level in the game coming into the club and almost immediately thinking, whoa, this is someplace, this, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I think I really enjoyed having Jermaine Defoe at Rangers. I think he's one of the most natural finishers I've seen, even although we got him at the tail end of his career. Some of the goals he scored. That one last year was against Ross County.
Livingston.
Was it Livingston? Tavernier just floated it over and he just passed it in. I counted it the other day. It was, how the shades in the park are 6 yards. I think it was 6 of those. So it's like he's watching that, but it's like a 36-yard pass, and he's got to watch it all the way, and then just, no thump it, laces through it, all that kind of thing. Just caress it into the bottom corner. Just a natural finisher, really. And that day he came on against Celtic, he came on, I said to my boy, I think he's going to get it. I think he's going to get the goal, because you wouldn't put it past him. And I think he only came on in like the 85th minute. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just like Jenner's like, on you go, get your goal. And he gets it, Yeah. So, yeah, a great player, great striker. Certainly, from what I see, from what he says in the media and stuff like that, he also comes across as a great guy as well. And it was really enjoyable having him at the club.
But at the time in his career as well, being offered, he's been offered maybe a coaching role, but he started leading a kind of parallel life, didn't he? He had the Rangers side of it, and all of a sudden he's appearing in Sky Sports, and people are saying, why is he down covering this game when he should be sitting in the house preparing for training tomorrow? No, I think that bit of it was it was a kind of maybe between a sort of rock and a hard place where he maybe wanted to continue his career, but equally he would have known the opportunities, especially if it's as high profile as he started out on Sky Sports and the likes. That doesn't come around, too often or too easily. And I think that maybe has actually made his decision a bit easier to either swallow or accept.
Yeah, I think you're right.
The way he was talking on Sky Sports the other day, he still wants to play, from what I was, so, I mean, I don't know if he'll take a step down, but I don't think we've seen the last of him as a player. I think, as Stuart says, we'll see more and more of him on the media side, because that seems to be, where he's sort of levitating towards. But I still think Jermaine Defoe will be a player for the next year at least.
Yeah, well, I was watching Hull versus Stoke today, Championship. Admittedly, one team at the bottom end of the Championship, one the other pushing for playoff, but it's the kind of level he could still do a job at. And I know he was struggling for game time at Bournemouth, but he could absolutely still score goals at that level week in, week out. Everyone knows he's fit enough. Everyone knows he keeps himself in good enough shape. And that is the kind of level that also facilitates the media work on the side. You see that with plenty of players down here. So look, when we talk about that goal at Livingston, which was, I seem to remember that being sort of a real milestone goal for him. I can't remember what number it was, but it was a huge goal for him personally. The goal at Celtic, he'd spoken about how much he wanted that Old Firm goal as well. There were moments like that where you could see how much it meant to him, and that this wasn't just a payday at the end of his career. He seemed to really fall for the club and enjoy his time there.
His goal up at Pittodrie as well was a good one. I liked his goal at Pittodrie last minute that just killed the game.
Absolutely. And it's a shame in a way that, again, the good stuff that he brought happened predominantly in a season without fans. It's a shame for him and a shame for us, but I don't think you'll find anyone with a bad word to say from Rangers about Jermaine Defoe. Handled himself really, really well, and I think it's right for all parties that he gets to go and pursue other opportunities. So we'll move then from a chap at maybe the tail end of his career to someone with exciting things ahead of him. Stuart, the other main outgoing in this transfer window has been Nathan Patterson. About a fortnight or so ago now, it was confirmed that he'd moved to Everton for a fee that was undisclosed, but it seems pretty clear that it's around about the £11 million mark, rising up to £16 million based on certain add-ons and targets being hit, with a sell-on percentage as well. First things first, it's by far and away the highest transfer fee that Rangers have ever received, and not bad for someone who's only played a dozen games or so. Certainly doesn't weaken the first 11. What are your thoughts on this deal?
Yeah, I'm surprised it's as much as 12.5 million. I thought I was reading in some places it was only $1 million plus $500,000 in add-ons, and that was from people in the know who were obviously closer to the deal than his agent was.
I liked the guy in Twitter pulling up Gordon Smith, telling him he was wrong.
Yeah, I must admit. I mean, that was pretty funny. It's the same as a lot of things in football, that you have people telling you, no, you're totally wrong. That's never going to happen. You're talking rubbish. When actually, you could be sitting at the dinner table with somebody who just told you something. You go and tweet it or put it in the paper the next day, and you still get people saying, yeah, I don't know what your source is, but it's absolutely wrong. Well, here's my source. Listen. The money that Rangers will get, you're absolutely right, Ross. This is a proper football deal, if you know what I mean. This isn't somebody who is valued at X number of pounds in the eyes of Rangers fans and suddenly get out the door for considerably less. This is actually a deal where Rangers have said, this is what this boy's worth, and and we're going to get top dollar from him. And the other thing was, you're right. You're looking at a situation where he is not actually, he is an established first team player, but only in as much as he was being used, as a bit part player. He was actually probably more established player, believe it or not, with Scotland at international level, or becoming that way, than it was at Rangers. So if somebody comes in and offers you that kind of money, and you cannot, even though Scotland try and do it with two left backs that I've got, you cannot force two guys who play the same position to play in different positions, because ultimately one of them will suffer. And you heard people saying, well, why can one of them not push forward and play? Why can Tavernier not push forward and play right midfield? Because he could play that position, yeah, but the fact that is his advantage of you actually being able to use him in that position is because he comes from so deep and actually ends up playing two positions. So, listen, I thought it was a no-brainer. The fact that Everton identified the guy as a player and a talent that they wanted, albeit they now have a manager who signed him who's no longer there, but that you could almost have predicted that 200 days ago when that move or that deal happened. I think it's a great bit of business for Rangers. I think I would reiterate what a great many Rangers fans have thought. It's great getting that money. Well done to the boy. Good luck to him. I don't think you'll ever forget that he was a Rangers player first and foremost. But I think you're looking for that money not to be squirreled away for rainy days. I think you're looking for that money to be invested in some way, shape or form and give Rangers the best chance again this season of actually winning a title.
Yeah, spot on. Colin, what are your thoughts on this one? It's certainly not a deal that makes us any weaker, and for that money, how could you feel?
I'm quite disappointed that we've lost him, because he did look at a huge talent, and it's always a wee bit disappointing when you lose young players like that and without actually really getting to see them. I think it was 13 appearances or something they made for Rangers. Yeah. So, but on the flip side, 60 million, if everything goes the way it should, for a player who only played 13 times is a great deal of business, a great bit of business, sorry. And it kind of ties in. I mean, I don't know if anybody's listened to Stuart Robinson on the Athletic podcast talking to Chappers, my mate Chappers. I thought he spoke very well, and it sort of tied in with a lot of the stuff that he said on that. That the club over the last few years has been trying to improve the sort of football operations side of the business and get young players in, and either get them into the first team, or if they're excelling at such a rate that they move on. So I would advise anyone to listen to it, because he gets a bit of stick, Robertson, every now and again, but he spoke very well on it. And some of the stuff that he talks about makes you think just how much the current regime that came in, was it 2015, how much rebuilding they had to do, in terms of the infrastructure at the club, the stadium, the training complex, and just the place was just a mess. And so for us to be sitting here like 6-7 years later, league champions, going for another league title and selling players for 16 million after they played for the club 13 times, it's indicative of the work that's been done there. You know what I mean? They really have done a great job in rebuilding the club, considering where we were, 5-6 years ago. So yeah, as I said, quite sad to see him go. It's just unfortunate that we had two great players in that position. Any other time, he would have probably walked into that right back position and held that down for a number of years. But Tav's obviously, operating at a high level. And the situation that Stuart's talking about as well, he's right. Tav does get a lot of benefit for starting his runs for deeper. But also, we do have right midfielders. You don't say to folk that are right mid, by the way, we're going to bin you because we've got to try and shoehorn these two guys into the team. It doesn't work like that. And if you're getting offered the sort of money that we were offered for Patterson, and, we do have to balance the books. This is something we've spoken about before on the show. Yeah, a great bit of business. A bit sad. I always find it young. I was a wee bit disappointed when Danny Wilson left when he was like 18, 19 or whatever, when he moved to Liverpool. I always find it a wee bit disappointing when young players go so young. But, we live in it's a business world, so we've got to balance the books, and it makes sense. So, yeah, best of luck to the boy.
I think the thing as well is with Rangers fans on this one is, and again, I completely understand the disappointment level, Colin. But when you see someone like Billy Gilmour going to Chelsea for washers, and then you suddenly see Rangers, coining in 12.5 million up to 16 million quid for Patterson, you have to say, what way do you want it? Do you want to be cashing in these players and getting their true value? Or do you want Rangers to be, in a similar situation? I know I might be comparing apples and oranges here, or tatties and turnips, but the fact of the matter is that, a great many people were unhappy that Gilmour could suddenly just leave and head to the big bright lights of London for virtually nothing. Whereas in this occasion, Rangers have got a good deal, and it's a deal as well. Looking at a bigger picture, it's a much bigger deal in as much as you suddenly have people realising that if you come to Scotland for decent talent, you're going to have to pay for it. And Everton, in some respects, might be a bit of a car crash in terms of what they've done transfer wise. But somebody there identified Patterson as the real deal, and I can assure you, if Patterson hadn't left this early on in the transfer market, Everton get in there first. If he had not gone to Everton, you can bet your bottom dollar, or you can bet any dollar you can find in and amongst your 12.5 million that Rangers got, that he would have gone elsewhere, and significantly elsewhere. Not just as a Southampton or a Burnley or whatever it is, to a pretty decent level or a pretty decent standard.
See, another thing is it ties in with what Robertson was saying on that podcast the other day there. I don't think Rangers could have done a deal like this a few years ago, because they didn't have that reputation. The club would have to convince the buying club, actually, we're a credible club, and we think this guy's worth X amount. And that's something that Robertson spoke about. They've really had to repair the reputation of the club, and therefore we are now sitting at the table negotiating as being viewed as a big and serious club, and that our opinion has been taken seriously. Whereas 5 or 6 years ago, I don't think that's the case. So I also think the fact that we've got this kind of money reflects well on the standing of the club and our negotiating position now. That I think Celtic have sort of ruled the roost in that recently. When they've been selling players, clubs down south are convinced, well, they produce players, they sell them on, right? We'll spend the money that they say they think they're worth. Whereas we would probably have struggled to do that, and that's maybe why Gilmore was part of the reason Gilmore walked out the door for next to nothing. But the fact that we're now negotiating these type of fees not only shows that we're producing better players, it shows that we are sitting down with people that want to buy our players and saying, well, you're not getting them until you pay this amount of money.
See, this is such a good point, and this is why it's so important that it's important for us that Patterson does well down there. Yeah. Because why is it that Celtic have been able to get 15, 16 plus million for Jeremy Frimpong from Leverkusen? Why is it that they were able to get 12 or 13 million for a Christopher Ayer who was in the last year of his contract and had spent 18 months of football running scared from big matches? It's because they had success with selling Virgil van Dijk. And Stuart Armstrong, who's obviously been pretty successful down at Southampton.
I think Van Dijk's the big one, isn't it? He done well at Southampton, and then he's got that huge move to Liverpool, and he's had a lot of success there. So every time Celtic sit down to negotiate, they'll just say, well, this is what we've done in the past.
Exactly. And it's so important that we can show success from our academy or for players that we've developed. And it will come to the sales of a Glenn Kamara or a Joe Aribo, who's, we probably don't have time to talk about it now, but doing incredibly well out at AFCON and has more eyes on him now than anyone ever did. I mean, remember when Lee Bowyer said, I don't know why he's going up to Rangers because he's sort of killing his career by doing so. That boy's going to get a hell of a move. And again, it's important for us that when that move comes, that it's for a good amount of money and that he does well. Because that's how we develop that, we cultivate that relationship, that reputation as a strong, successful selling club. It's so important for the financial future.
What a visionary, though. I mean, Lee Bowyer. I mean, honestly, there is a guy that whatever he says now, I'm getting an alert on my phone and on Google that if he says anything, I basically buy into it almost immediately, just to see how long it will take for whatever he has said to become a complete and utter irrelevance.
He actually did all right at Charlton, didn't he? He was there for a few years and got them promoted, but it was bitter. Do you remember a few years back when we signed Josh Windass and Matt Crooks from Accrington Stanley? Do you remember their chairman and their fans going up, why are they going up there? Scottish football's irrelevant. It's just bitterness, complete and utter bitterness. And Lee Bowyer, looking at his career here, he never actually achieved anything. He never won anything. So saying that Joe Aribo's not going to have a career because he's moved to Scotland, and Joe Aribo played top 4 Premier League football, undoubtedly. I mean, he's a stunning talent.
There was somebody on Twitter last night or something like that said, yeah, I've watched the Aribo United, that's Man United, you get them for 600,000. And I mean, there has to be some form, the algorithms where you can request that Twitter immediately head round to somebody's address and drug test them. 600 grand. Yeah, okay.
Mental.
See that thing you're talking about people in England looking down at the Scottish game. That's why it's so important that someone like Defoe, talks so well about not just the club, but the football up here and stuff like that. Because there are so many players. There's been a lot of big name players that have played for Rangers and that shower out of the road, by the way, who have spoken nothing but highly about the clubs that they played for and their experience in the country and the football and all that kind of thing. But you've still got these people down there, who proclaim that the Premiership's the best league in the world, that sort of churn out the sort of nonsense that we're a pub league and all that kind of thing. Now, don't get me wrong, we're nowhere near a huge league by any stretch of the imagination. But I think a lot of people that spout that nonsense would be surprised if they come up here and actually took in a few games.
Absolutely. Honestly, I live and work with it every single day down here. And it's rude, it's arrogant, and it's completely ill-informed. There are some incredibly tin pot features of our game. I don't think anyone's going to deny that. And by the way, if Dick Campbell gets Arbroath promoted with a part-time squad and that stadium playing in the SPFL Premiership. That makes us probably, I mean, it's a wonderful story and it'd be funny in a great away day, but it doesn't help the sort of image and reputation. But we're a huge club, a huge footballing institution, and it's players like Jermaine Defoe coming up here and experiencing that and then talking it up. It stops Darren from Lincoln replying to a tweet from Sky Sports saying that my nan could boss that league.
But the thing is, you mentioned there with Arbroath, I mean, that is Kilnockie and Robert Duval actually coming true. That is everything you saw in that famous Oscar performance from McCoist. That's like real life actually, arriving here on our very doorstep if that actually happens. But no, I think there's enough young talent and enough good players. And again, you look at the likes of Robertson at Liverpool. Okay, he's to serve an apprenticeship with Hull City, but people saw there that guy was something different. And long may it continue. I really have to be supportive of Scottish players that go down there and make a mark, and anything to actually make people look at Scottish football in a different light. I know I'm really, really critical of it at times, simply because clubs sell one guy for 2 or 3 million and immediately head for the heady heights of, you say, Accrington Stanley, to splash their cash and make them, and bring in a complete non-entity. But the fact of the matter is, the more that Rangers or Celtic or Hearts or Hibs or whoever it might be, Aberdeen, can actually send players south that can actually do a job, the better it will be long-term for Scottish football, and the better it will be for Scottish football clubs, and that includes Rangers, attracting top dollar for the best talent.
That's it. I think we've seen that the impact that young English talent has had coming to Rangers. I mean, no doubt attracted by Steven Gerrard, but some of the players we signed we never would have got if it weren't for him. And they always speak so highly of, whether it's a Jermaine Defoe who leaves and talks highly of the club, or it's a Joe Aribo who comes up the road, or a Connor Goldson comes up the road and goes, I never appreciated how big this was, because it's not spoken about enough. There's 4, maybe 5 English Premier League teams that can match Rangers for size. And let's be truthful. That's the same for the other mob across the other end of the city. There's not many clubs that can match it for size. So a wee bit of respect is all we're asking. Gents, we've only got a few minutes left, but in 48 hours we'll know the result of Aberdeen versus Rangers as we return after the hastily brought forward winter break. Obviously we won't rake over old ground there, but it is phenomenal to have the football coming back. A tough place to go, certainly not the game you would choose to have your first game back after 3 weeks, but Colin, what shape is the squad's going to be in? You'd like to think not too many of them have been away with internationals or the like. Surely they should be fighting fit and raring to go.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to be honest with you, over the last sort of couple of weeks, I've not tuned out, but I've not been reading up as much as I would normally do, because, you try and be informed when you're producing high quality content like we do twice a week, Ross. But because we've had that wee break, I've not been really following up any sort of updates for the club. But I mean, I've not seen anything in terms of, new injuries or anything like that. So, I mean, I think Roof's still doubtful. Obviously, Ryan Jack, Hollander, I would imagine probably that's arrived too quickly for him. But, I mean, I think the squad's in pretty decent shape. It's obviously not the best place to be going at the moment. I'm slightly annoyed that slightly annoyed doesn't even cover it. I mean, the whole thing was farcical, that break getting moved. We were handed that real tough December, and it was like, you're seeing all these Celtic fans. We'll see where Sefco are come the end of December, and then with the 20th of December we've won every game and we're motoring, and it's like, all right, okay, right, let's move the winter break because of the Omicron. So we had a bit of momentum, and I'm a wee bit annoyed that that's been disrupted. I'd rather got to Pittodrie while we were in that sort of run of momentum and run of form. But, it's always a difficult place to go. But Gio knows that. He's still yet to concede. We're doing really, really well. No, we've conceded one. Did we concede one?
Conceded against Livingston.
Yeah, right. So, But I think we've not conceded in the last 6 or something like that. I can't remember. Anyway, but I mean, we've stopped conceding anyway. You know what I mean? When you consider where we are, the sort of last few weeks of Steven Gerrard, we were 1-0 down, 2-0 down every week, basically. Yeah, I feel fairly confident. A wee bit frustrating that momentum was interrupted, but the way we've been defending, I feel pretty confident going up there, I must admit. You've got to be, if you want to win leagues, you've got to, these are the games that you've got to go and win. You know what I mean? You've got to go up there and make a statement. They're not in the best form. Obviously, it's always a tough place to go in terms of atmosphere and stuff like that. But once you get through that, and just focus on the football, play the players you're playing against rather than the atmosphere and the occasion, and we should win.
Yeah. Stuart, one player that we've not been without all season, I think he's played in every single game so far, is Joe Aribo. Obviously, he's over in Cameroon at the moment, setting Africa on fire, not literally. How big a miss will he be, and what would you do to try and plug that gap?
Listen, the fact that he's 6,000 miles away, or whatever it is, 7,000 miles away, playing in an international tournament at this time of season, I have to say it's regrettable. It's just where football is and where the African Cup of Nations is in terms of the grand scheme of things. People can talk it up, but you wouldn't be playing this in January. You'd be playing it, in the summer and playing it at the same time as European football shuts down for their summer break. Do the same as we do with the Euros or World Cup or whatever. That's by the by. Listen, he could have missed this game through suspension. He could have missed this game by slipping in the snow or taking a kick in training. You have to get up and get on with it. And will he be missed? Probably yes, but I think this is, you're looking at the squad and thinking that if Joe Aribo's out, somebody else has to come in and do the job. Who's got to be given that task? You could speculate that there are a few players that might actually be asked to do a job. I think whilst Aribo might be seen as an attacking talent, I do wonder whether on this occasion Giovanni Van Bronckhorst might go to Pittodrie with not so much a safety first attitude, but let's try and let's just tough this one out and get a win with whatever it takes rather than playing silky soccer. So I'm interested to see who fills that void, what kind of formation that Rangers decide to play with Aribo not being there. And ultimately, if they get a result with him being absent, then that can only go well for the rest of the season.
I think Stuart's right. I think it'll be a similar performance to the one at Easter Road. Yeah, I don't think Rangers will be overly expansive on Tuesday night. I think it'll be just make sure we don't concede. And if we don't concede, you've got every chance then.
That's the point, Colin. That's the point, Colin. And you were right to bring that up. And it's something that, I said often enough. When Steven Gerrard was still at Rangers, life was extremely difficult for Rangers because they were conceding first and then having to score a goal just to equalise and get themselves back in. Under Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, Rangers have been comfortable at 0-0. And they've never tried to hurry games on. They've never tried to rush things. They've taken their time. And ultimately, if they've scored one goal, they're then going on to score 2 or 3 or even more. It's been pretty controlled and measured by Rangers. And I think, if anything, under Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, they have lost the element of desperation in their performances, where we almost need to score in the first 5 minutes. And if we don't score in the first 5 minutes, oh my God, we're going to concede a goal in the first 15 minutes, and then it's got to be uphill. I think there is a real confidence in their own ability and a calmness within that team that actually has suited the Rangers players. I don't think there's as much pressure on them, and I think they're actually quite capable of handling games. And if it takes an hour to score a goal, it'll take an hour to score a goal. They don't have that anxiety issue that I think they had under Steven Gerrard.
No, we're controlling games. But that's one thing. You're right, sure. Since Van Bronckhorst has came in, we're controlling games a lot better now. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, Easter Road was a wee bit nervy towards the end. It was the late show, wasn't it? But I've never really felt during a game so far under Gio that we were going to lose it. You know, it was all about
football, and it's been very effective football. There's a lot of talk about keeping the zero, which is a much fancier way than what Colin just said of staying at nil, I think you said. But keeping the zero sounds a lot nicer.
I've never been the most finessed.
going for the W. But in those performances as well, Rangers have adopted an approach whereby they have contained teams not by defending and shutting games down. They've actually made it, dominated the possession and actually put the other teams in the back foot because of the personnel that they've used. Be it Hadji, be it Sakala. Sakala's pace and the fact that he's got such a good spring coming out of the back post or whatever it is, has given Rangers another option and occupies potentially, attacking fullbacks. Because if you get Sakala to watch, you can't be 50 yards further down the pitch or you're going to get skinned. And I think it's been very subtle and very slight sort of amendments and a bit of tinkering with the Rangers team and how they approach it. But Rangers are actually controlling games, being in the front foot now, rather than hanging on, for I want a better description. And I think that's a huge change that's come in under Gio.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. I'm just looking here at Alfredo Morelos' stats against Aberdeen in the Premiership, in the league. 11 games, 7 goals. Certainly a club that he enjoys getting a goal against them with the form that he's shown under Gio. Obviously enjoying working with Roy Mackay, obviously looking in good shape. That's where my money will be for Tuesday evening. And of course, there is a game before that tomorrow night. The other side of the city are at home hosting Hibs. Certainly not an easy game. Hibs, since the League Cup final, have won both of their games against Aberdeen and against Dundee United. So they're a wee bit of decent form themselves, and hopefully they can do us a favour tomorrow night. That will sort of take us to the top of the show there. So thank you to both Colin and to Stuart for giving up their Sunday evening to join me to talk about Rangers. It's been a real pleasure being back on air and getting to talk about the club. Thanks as well to everyone who's joined us on the YouTube stream tonight. It's been a pleasure having you back with us, and I hope you enjoyed the show. As always, the show is available for download first thing on a Monday, so please do give us a subscribe, maybe give us a like and a wee comment as well, and help us out with that. The show will, of course, be back next Sunday with the main show. That's Sunday the 23rd of January, and that'll be at 9:30 on the Gersnet YouTube stream. I'm sure there's going to be one or two little preview shows and reviews popped out in the interim throughout the week, so just keep your eye on the Gersnet social media channels for all the latest information. Until then, enjoy the game on Tuesday. Let's hope for a positive result, and we will see you next week. Bye for now.
Cheers, folks.